Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, amazing people all around the world of crypto and blockchain globally. And today I have another amazing guest. How do I know? Because this man and I were cohorts at the Digital Economist during my one-year apprenticeship at that organization from September last year to September this year. And he is amazing. And let me introduce him. He is the president of the AfriDES, African Digital Economy Summit. His name is Kelvin Jiraji. Kelvin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jamil.
You're very welcome. Thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to speaking with you. This is going to be great. So I'll ask you first, kick things off. What is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
Yes, absolutely. My background is rooted in digital transformation strategy, policy advocacy, and ecosystem building. I come from a community whereby it is very difficult for a young person to pick up an idea, iterate it over and over, and transform it into a scalable business. I'm from Nigeria, Benue State precisely, where we pride ourselves as the food basket of the nation. So originally, I come from an agrarian community in the north central Nigeria. And very early, I grew up in the hinterland, the village where my parents were farmers. So very early in my life, I made up my mind that if I ever come across technology, I'm going to take it back to my people to empower my people. So originally, I'm an elect engineer by training, but I consider myself a builder. So 10 years ago, I left banking to start the first agri-tech hub in Africa called the Agri-Tech and Social Innovation Hub, where our main focus was to get young people into agriculture, get young people into technology, because personally, I believe that agriculture and technology, particularly in Africa, has the potential of lifting a lot of young people across the poverty line. So our focus at Agri-Tech Hub was getting young people into agriculture to disrupt the sector. Because agriculture for a population of over 200 million is a very, very critical sector. And the average age of a Nigerian farmer is over 45 years. So there was every need to bring young people into the sector to disrupt it. And from Agri-Tech, I now moved on to supporting one of the amazing persons I've met in my life, Kigama, to building the African Chamber of Digital Commerce, where we went about policy advocacy and policy re-engineering around emerging technology on the continent and in the diaspora, and mobilizing investments and leveraging the diaspora community for investment on the continent and investment into startups, both the continent and the diaspora. So largely, my background has prepared me for what I'm currently doing, the African Digital Economic Summit, which will be coming up on November 19th on the sideline of the G20, the first ever G20 on the African soil in Johannesburg on November 19th. So my background, beginning from Agri-Tech to ACOFDC, now AfriDES. My background has prepared me, and I feel this as a call. Thank you.
Great. I didn't realize it was the first time that G20 was meeting on the African continent. That's a win. I also didn't realize, the lay of the land in Nigeria. I also didn't. Now that's good to know. I do want to know, what AfriDES is all about, including your goals for the Economy Summit and the results that you wish to achieve, as a president from this event.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so AfriDES is a multi-stakeholder, multilateral company that brings together both policymakers, academia, investors, and strategic partners, particularly Friends of Africa, to co-create or ignite Africa in a way that has never been done before. So AfriDES is that high-level convening of strategic partners, because in holistic approach, because our approach towards digital transformation is looking at how do we look at the holistic approach towards digital transformation on the continent. So AfriDES is here to answer that question. So primarily, our goal is to ignite Africa, and we are here to champion digital transformation on the global stage at the G20. And some of the outcomes that we are looking out for is one, policy alignment. I currently serve as a consultant to the Specialty Healthcare Committee of the Federal House of Representatives. We are advised on policy and healthcare innovation. So one of the outcomes that we'll be looking at is how do we get the right frameworks or some of the policies around healthcare, data sovereignty, data governance. So it's very, very critical. Policy alignment is at the topmost of some of the outcomes we are looking out for at AfriDES. Secondly is around youth empowerment and upskilling, and then talent. Because Africa currently has one of the largest youth population in the world. And this youth population is both a blessing and a curse. Depends on how we empower them. So as a young person myself, though not really young, my focus is looking at how do we leverage or create a support system whereby we can empower young people in an era of AI. How do we empower young people with the right skills for the jobs of the future? And with that, we'll be launching an AI legacy project for Africa where we are leveraging some of the networks we have with our partnership with digital economists and some of our partners to empower young people or create that a pipeline of channel talent and upskilling opportunities for young people on the continent, particularly around AI and emerging technology, to prepare them for the jobs of the future. And lastly is around investment mobilization. As a founder myself, I realize or I can appreciate the challenges of a young person picking up an idea and building it with, into a thriving businesses, assessing investment. One thing I've realized over the years is investment is a game of relationships. So in our bid to trying to create investment mobilization, we are bringing together the right people in the room, talking about Clarendon Ventures, Smart Capital Network, and of course our friends at the Digital Economist and some governments on the continent, and then some very strategic ministers of finance in the room to look at what are the strategies of mobilizing finance for startups. How do we create awareness for our elites, our political elites, who are well endowed, who have a lot of resources to channel them into young people to be able to build their ideas into thriving businesses that will create both jobs and employment opportunities. So those are the three outcomes that we are looking at for, both policy alignment, investment mobilization, and the talent and youth upskilling.
Great. So I think I heard you say at some point, you believe that Africa should be built by Africans, right? Why do you feel that?
Yeah, to a very large extent, but not taking out the support from, because from strategic partners who are Friends of Africa, because realistically, the world is a global village, But as a young person, what has happened the past 10 years has been it's like appalling. Because the last 10 years, we witnessed our peers live for better opportunities abroad. Some of the best of us have left Africa to foreign lands. So I believe that that is largely because of some of the realities on the ground. And Africa must be built by Africans. And when the right policy, when the right government, when the right strategy is in ground, I believe that leveraging a platform like AfriDES will be able to attract our diaspora, our brothers and sisters who are abroad, to come join some of us who have taken up the challenge, who have owned the journey to building the Africa we want. So realistically, nobody can define your future better than you. So Africa must be ignited and be initiated. The new Africa must be initiated by Africans with support from global partners. But primarily, I must insist that Africa must be built by Africans. Africa must be built by Africans. However, with support from global partners, because the world is currently a global village.
What you said sounds real familiar to me. The U.S. has not been particularly fond and pleasant place for blockchain founders and builders who over the past several years have gone abroad. So in order to ask the next question I want to find out first the state of the current African digital economy landscape, your vision for the future, and then I want to go back to this comment that you said earlier about the youth population. So let's find out about the landscape of African digital economy first and your vision.
Okay, I think I believe that the current landscape of the digital economy on the continent is in flux, largely because currently we have over 500 million internet users. We have a very youthful and tech-savvy population that is very, very innovative. However, there have been a lot of challenges that have been militating against, having a very thriving digital economy landscape on the continent. And one of the issues around the digital infrastructure. The challenge around digital infrastructure is very, very large. As I speak to you, I'm already having a very, a lot of internet challenges, and I'm joining you from Abuja, the city center. So how much more our brothers and sisters in the hinterlands? So one of the challenges is around digital infrastructure. We need to strengthen our digital infrastructure. We need to also enlarge it, and then secondly is around access to opportunities. Because the digital infrastructures are not even, some persons don't have access to opportunities which are digital in nature. And the world is largely digital, so equality in opportunity or access to opportunities are some of the challenges around the landscape on the continent. Then if you look around beyond access to opportunity, if you look around inclusive finance, what is happening? What's happening across Africa is, if you go to, less than 50% of Africans are in the urban centers. Over 50% are in the hinterlands. So if you go to the hinterlands, what you observe is, for everywhere you see a financial organization or a bank or a financial institution, you realize that the people around that area are very developed, are very self-reliant. If you move away a distance where there's no financial inclusion institutions, you realize that the standard of living is very low. Infant mortality is very high, the suffering is very, very high. So there needs to be, an inclusive financial, strategy to really cover a good number of people. So beyond access to opportunity, access to financial opportunity, we have lack of capital. Today, entrepreneurship seems to be the order of the day because the civil service or government can barely employ less than 10%. Looking at Nigeria, for instance, for a population of over 200 million, the civil service is employing less than 10 to 15% of the total population. So what happens to the over 85% of the population? Entrepreneurship and of course the startup ecosystem needs to be alive. And that can happen only with access to capital. So capital is a very, very critical element that will drive the digital economy landscape of the continent. So overall, I would like to say that there's been a lot of improvements around fintech. Currently, Nigeria is one of the biggest driver in fintech in the world. I would like to say that there's been a lot of improvement in Agtech. There have been a lot of improvement in Agritech because we are now seeing where agriculture is playing a very significant role in agriculture. There's been a lot of significant improvement in even crypto adoption on the continent, which I feel has gone a very long way in defining the digital economic landscape of the continent. Nigeria currently is one of the largest country adopting crypto blockchain, particularly around cryptocurrency on the continent. And then in the world, largely it's one of the lead. So I think overall, there's been an improvement, but we need to do more, especially around digital infrastructure, improving digital infrastructure on the continent, improving digital connectivity, the internet connectivity, improving access to opportunities, access to finance, access to capital. So I can say that there's been a lot of improvement, though a lot of challenges are staring us in the face, but I want to believe that with platforms like AfriDES and kind of support we are receiving and the multi-stakeholder approach, Africa is in for a ride, and Africa is the continent to watch out for. And I'm excited to be alive and to be one of the drivers of the digital economy at a time like this on the
continent. Awesome. So I just did a quick analysis of your population and the numbers you presented to me. You have 500 million tech users. There's 1.5 billion people in Africa continent. Nigeria has 230 million. Two of the top, when I was back at AIG in my corporate days, our subsidiaries were in Kenya, which is 7th, and Uganda, which is 9th. And they have a combined 100 million people. The other countries, Ethiopia, Egypt, Congo is 4th, 112 million. And you say there's not a lot of connectivity in the hinterlands, right? When I think of Congo, and Ethiopia, I think of hinterlands, right? And not so much Nigeria, it's beginning to boom now. Like, how can we address that million missing people, like not missing people, but like the connectivity that's missing to these billion people that are in the hinterlands? How can you help that make them be able to get that connectivity that they should have?
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. And I believe that your question is where the opportunities on the continent lies. Africa is the future. And when we have conversations and when some of us are shouting Africa is the future, that's where we are laying our claims, with over half of the population on the continent that have lack of access to connectivity. We believe that is largely where the opportunity lies. And how best do we address this? Is first, to get the right policies, because some of these issues is around policy, a lack of policy alignment. At the moment, we have Starlink, which is doing amazing well on the continent, getting the rural community, connected. But of course, without the right policies, there's little innovation can do. Innovation thrives best in an environment of regulated policies and coordination. So we need the right policy, and we are using the platform of AfriDES at the G20 to advocate for policy alignment across government, particularly ministers of digital economy. How do we have the right policies in place to allow, stakeholders to come in and disrupt the sector, especially around digital connectivity and data centers? So these are very, very critical. Secondly, there needs to be a very intentional investment framework. At the moment, our budgeting system is very, very poor. If you look at what is budgeted for digital infrastructure on the continent, it's very, very poor. We need to create a level playing ground to attract foreign direct investment, particularly around digital infrastructure, because the return on investment will be very, very amazing, especially for countries with very, very huge population. If you look at the return on investment for MTN, for instance, in Nigeria, over the past years, it has been very, very encouraging, And as we speak, Nigeria is less than 50%, are enjoying less than 65% connectivity. So the lack of connectivity holds a lot of opportunities. And beyond investment, we need to be very, very open to having a level playing ground, especially embracing youthful and tech-savvy population and getting our people with the right skill set. When you equip a young person or a youthful population with the right skill sets, they dramatically change the narratives of the country. And what has happened over the time, especially around crypto, should be an eye-opener to the world on equipping young people with the right skill set and the right narratives to thrive. Crypto adoption on the continent has been very, very amazing. So, we have a lot of young people who, despite the odds of lack of access to connectivity, despite the odds of the lack of regulated policy and frameworks, they've been able to beat those odds to create a crypto ecosystem that is very, very thriving. So we believe that when young people are properly equipped, when young people are, are upskilled properly, they can unlock opportunities that will be very, very dramatic in improving and increasing the GDP, both in the individual countries on the continent and on the continent. And finally, we need to have a borderless Africa, where data, where innovation is borderless, where I can build an app today and then scale it in South Africa or Kenya or Congo in the next 2 weeks. We need a borderless Africa. And I'm excited that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is exploring towards that direction. So we need a borderless Africa. It's very, very critical for both innovation, policy, and capital flow.
I agree. I like that idea. I want to go back, though, to what you said about the younger population being a blessing and a curse. In the U.S., we have the different issue. We have the boomer generation that's the old school, traditional, stubborn. I'll use that word, stubborn. I could use other words. I'll use that word. Slow to move, and I don't see breakthroughs happening in the areas of like sustainability, equality, inclusion, which, our new regime said we no longer care about DEI. what breakthroughs with this younger generation and an improved economic policy do you see in these areas? And what do you think is possible? And why would and how can you take that blessing and curse, viewpoint of the younger generation and just have it be a blessing?
Okay, for it to really be a blessing, first we need an inclusive digital finance. Where capital will flow to the right talent and channel. We need an inclusive digital finance. As I highlighted earlier, if you look around on the continent, for everywhere you go and then you look at, you find a finance institution or the people are properly included financially. The systems are very, very burgeoning. They are thriving. Because if you look at the hinterlands, I said Africa is divided in both the hinterlands and the urban centers. A lot of wealth is in the hinterlands, the rural community. That is where most of our natural resource is. And Africa is blessed with one of the highest natural resources, critical minerals in the world. And all these critical minerals are found in the hinterlands, in the rural community. So if we have an inclusive digital finance, in place where rural communities can, get access to finance and can live a very good life, because what we have now is there's been a lot of migration and immigration, whereby the workforce in the hinterlands are emigrating or migrating to urban centers, thereby reducing the workforce. The workforce, the energy needed to really harness those mineral resources in a way and manner that could be very, very beneficial, not just to those communities, but to the entirety of both the entire countries, individual countries on the continent and in Africa as well. Secondly, we need mechanization. We need mechanization because on the continent, both agriculture, both mineral mining, both resource, most of the resource activities are done in a very crude manner, which have not been efficient in driving productivity, particularly around agriculture. So with improved, equipment, we can be able to harness, both the agricultural potential and then drive productivity around mining and mineral resource control on the continent. Thirdly, digital sustainability. We need green energy. We need energy efficient data infrastructure to drive efficiency on the continent. And lastly, we need equitable data governance. African nations need to own and monetize their data. It's very, very critical in driving productivity in this age and times. Equitable data governance is very, very critical on the continent because African continents or African governments or African nations need to own their data, need to monetize their data, need to decide what they do with their data to drive productivity and, of course, to drive efficiency in different sectors of the economy. And finally, there's been a lot of redundancy within the youthful population. It is projected that by 2035, Africa is going to have one of the highest youthful population in the world, and those population needs to be properly trained. Their youthful energy needs to be properly channeled, so there needs to be training, upskilling, an intentional training and upskilling program, like the AI legacy project that the AfriDES, is trying to launch, which we are calling for stakeholder support, international funding of international development partners come on board. So we need to be very, very strategic in harnessing the youthful population on the continent, or else it will turn out, if we don't properly harness that population, it may turn out a cost. And how will it turn out a cost? If you look at the continent critically, you realize that there has been some level of unrest, especially around Sub-Saharan Africa, the northern hemisphere. Over the past 10 years, we've observed a lot of insurgency. We've observed a lot of kidnappings. We've observed all manner of, theft and, a lot of issues, of young people trying to migrate in a very, very funny way, trying to cross the Red Sea, So we believe that if these young people are not properly trained and, given access to opportunities, those negative vices, because they have a lot of energy, they must channel their energy, either positively or negatively. So we are calling for upskilling of youthful population on the continent, channel the energy of young people into skills that are very productive, that are defining the future of work globally.
I like it. You said emigration, right? Yeah, I see that. Well, I see. Let's look at it and say you achieve your goals here of the summit and everything's doing. So you get more investment, you upskill the people, you have policies in place. I believe, and I could be wrong on this, there's still a massive gender gap in Africa's tech ecosystem, right? How do you close the gender gap?
Yes, thank you for that question. If you look at, especially within the tech ecosystem, if you look at beginning from even the leadership roles, you realize that there's very, very huge gender gap. And if you look at Africa critically, there's a very, very huge gender gap in some of the most critical sectors on the continent. Look at agriculture, for instance. Women are the drivers of agriculture on the continent. But when it comes to decision making, they are put below the radar, So what we are trying to do is give women a chance, first by appointing the 2 co-chairs for AfriDES to the women, very versatile lady, looking at Taboka Dube and Rashid, who are the co-chairs for the African Digital Economy Summit, Digital Inclusivity on the Continent, because the tech ecosystem on the continent is around the gender divide. And they say when you empower a woman, you empower a nation. You don't just empower families, you empower a nation. So we are very, very intentional about women empowerment. If you look at the team, 90% of the team for AfriDES is women. We are trying to send one very clear message, what a man can do when it comes to tech, a woman can do better. And when we need to put women at the forefront to drive both policies, to drive execution, because when a woman executes, she executes with a sense of building. She's a builder by nature, And so at the moment, Africa needs builders, and we need to put our best builders forward, which are the women. So at AfriDES, we are very, very intentional about women empowerment, and that is why most of, you look at us, even our speaker list, 60% have been we've intentionally, made out 60% of the slots for women. So African women needs to be given a chance, and we can't say that enough, but we need to call on government to bring up policies that will intentionally involve women, because over time, the African culture has come up with a way of putting women down. But with innovation and kind of results we've gotten from a few women that are finding themselves in that forefront, we need to be very intentional about calling for women empowerment. And AfriDES is the best platform to champion that, beginning at the G20 And we are doing all we can to put women at the forefront, and that is why we repeatedly call on our two co-chairs to drive the front seat, Sharufa and Tabuka. So I'm excited to be aligned to that call today of giving women a chance, particularly both on the diaspora and on the continent, to drive, women in tech components on the continent and defining the future of technology on the continent for both the jobs of the future, because when you empower a woman, you empower a nation. Thank you.
I'm going to be interested to see how that works out, because it seems like you're passionate about it, and I'm interested to see, and then other countries can learn from you. So that'd be great,
Yeah, thank you, Hassan. Thank you.
You're welcome. I have a couple last questions for you, because I love this conversation so far. And the next one I want to know is you talked about startups, right? So you have an AfriDES Startup Accelerator. How does that work? How do you help bring some ideas to reality at the accelerator? Why should people join the accelerator?
Okay, yeah, thank you. The AfriDES Startup Accelerator is an accelerator that is first focused on getting startups, both on the continent and in the diaspora, AI ready. An AI readiness, startup accelerator program where, because we believe that AI will define, the startups of the future. So how do we first get them AI ready before we begin to have even investment conversation? And that is our focus with the AfriDES Startup Accelerator. Secondly, we are looking at creating that framework where startups on the continent can connect with, investors like Clarendon Ventures to build a very long-standing relationship. Because, as I said earlier, the game of investment is a game of relationship. So the earlier you begin to cultivate those relationships with investors and then critical stakeholders, the better it will be around your fundraising drive in the future. So we are creating that investment and deal room space at our AfriDES on the 19th of November, where startups can come to interact with investors to, creating that familiarity as to what they are building, what are the challenges are, what are their funding needs, and then we can continue to track the relationship and the funding needs of the startups over time. Unfortunately, we are not able to call for the first cohort now. We'll be doing that after the event to, accommodate the first cohorts to drive the AI readiness startup accelerator, the AfriDES Startup Accelerator that we plan to have post the event. So primarily, the AfriDES Startup Accelerator is looking at the AI readiness component for startups and getting startups investment ready and then connecting them to funders or investors that are willing to put money in their hands and building that right relationship for them to try.
I think it's a good idea to have it after the event, because you get passionate people who were inspired at the event join your accelerator. It's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Very cool. So I enjoyed speaking with you today. I want to thank you very much for the conversation and for your time. I have one last question. It's how can people find out more information about you, about AfriDES? How can they join AfriDES? How can they do that? How can they sign up? How can they do it?
Yes. So largely, AfriDES is dubbed as the Davos of Africa. So it's largely a movement. It's a movement. So you can join the movement by going to the website www.afrides.org. Just register through the registration link. You mustn't necessarily be part of the event, but just register. And primarily, you can join our virtual audience for the event. Register is $50 to join the virtual audience. Our event, you can join to part of the virtual audience. But primarily, We need like minds, we need thinkers, we need very passionate people that are very passionate for the Africa we want to be part of this movement. Because as we said earlier, Africa is bigger than myself, Jiraji. Africa is bigger than everyone, so we need people to come together. We need to defeat the idea of working in silos, but working collaboratively with development partners and global partners like yourself, Jamie. I'm excited that you are creating a platform that will amplify the work we are doing in your own little way of contributing to building the African digital economy. And we are excited about that, So we are calling on like minds like you to come in and contribute in their own little way, of building a global powerhouse, the African digital economy. And I call on everybody, every meaningful person out there to come and join the movement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. Nice talking to you, Jamil.